Coming up on FTC Recap, guest Manny Lowe from the FTC Game Design Committee joins the show as we discuss Walk Like Woody Day, what goes into FTC game design, and play FTC trivia. All this and more coming up on FTC Recap.
Giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
First Updates Now FTC is produced in partnership with the Orange Alliance. Make TOA your place to go for FTC team stats and event results at theorangealliance.org. And also, viewers like you. We need your help to keep fun loud, live, and independent. Help us by visiting our Patreon to pledge your support at patreon.com/First Updates Now. You can also support fun live on Twitch for a few bucks a month or by linking your Prime account for free and clicking subscribe.
Welcome to FTC Recap, where you get the breakdown and discussion of what's going on in the FTC community. From First Updates Now, I'm Ishan, and joining me are Egan and Ingrid.
We'd like to welcome our guest, Manny Lowe, a member of the FTC Game Design Committee since 2007. Manny coordinates FTC for the state of Mississippi and has grown the program there from 4 teams to over 65 since 2012. He has mentored many teams, and in 2016 was awarded the Volunteer of the Year award at the World Championships. So thank you for coming on the show, Manny.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
With that being said, let's get into our headlines. FTC Team 6433, the Neutrinos from Florida, just teased their robot for the Ultimate Goal season, and it looks to be a very fast and accurate shooter. They brought back the Blur, which was super popular in Relic Recovery and had a lot of controversy surrounding it, and they've blurred their robot so you can't replicate it. What do you guys think about them sharing this? It looks like an awesome robot, but what do you think about the Blur?
It looks pixelated.
Yeah, I remember probably one of the more, infamous blurs was Land Bros from the Rover Ruckus season, where they put the Boston Dynamics spot over their robot and just stretched it. I'm personally not a fan. I feel like if you're going to share your robot, share the whole thing. And it's cool to show off what it can do and all, but I don't know. It's kind of, it's like a gray area, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Want to move on to the next topic, Egan?
Sure, why not? So one of the ongoing software projects in the FTC community, FTC Lib, has just released version 1.1.0. The project is designed to be an FTC analog of the widely used WPI lib of FRC, making it easier to use advanced software concepts. There are pre-made drive bases, commands, path following, and trajectory building tools in the library. That, along with full documentation, code samples, among other things, makes FTC Lib a great tool for coders of any team. And it brings stuff from various FTC software projects into one library. So a couple of notable things from this release. We've got hardware. It's been unabstracted. Most of this is code speak, I guess. But what's really important is that it's, FTC's getting some sort of unified code to it, apart from the SDK. So the way that the library is structured is to be almost like a direct sort of analog to the way that someone might use WPI lib for FRC. So, if you're coming from FRC, then it's useful in that case. If you're not, then it makes it easier to get started with complex stuff like kinematics and odometry with commands built in.
Seems interesting. One thing I'm curious about, Manny, you mentor a lot of teams. Would you use a certain external libraries? Have you used external libraries in the past?
I know some of my teams have. I have not been formally going into it. I try to keep it at the high level to help the rookies and second-year teams mostly. But this does look interesting. Just got to make sure that you check the legality of it. Make sure everything is copacetic with the game rules.
Awesome. And it also might make it easier if a FRC team maybe is running on a budget this year and they want to try out FTC. This could be one way to make the transition easier if they're using WPI lib.
Right.
Yeah.
Miss Singer, do you want to move on to Walk Like Woody Day?
Yes, Walk Like Woody Day was October 12th in memoriam of his passing a year ago. Teams, volunteers, mentors, sponsors, donors, supporters, so many people posted in honor of him on social media with the hashtag Walk Like Woody. It was wonderful to see a colorful collage of pictures and videos that had Woody smiling, decorated with signatures and buttons. There are also videos about what it means to walk in Woody's example of gracious professionalism. Also announced, starting in 2020, a Woody Flowers Memorial Grant will be awarded annually to one First Tech Challenge or First Robotics Competition Dean's List Award winner. The grant, funded by generous donors, will be for $10,000 per year, renewable for up to 4 years, and is applicable for majors in a STEAM discipline, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and may be used by recipients attending an accredited university of their choice. What a wonderful tribute for a fantastic person. Did any of you post anything that would be in honor of Woody?
So unfortunately, our team did not get to post stuff. We posted stuff last year, but I can definitely share a story. And I know, Manny, you probably have tons of stories being with Woody Flowers. I met Woody a couple of times, and I think I met him at the airport once at 6 a.m., and he was just eating a McDonald's like a normal person. And I think that's a lot of what Woody's about. He's just a normal guy, and he likes to be around people like engineers. And at First Global, I actually got to talk to him a bit about the robot design, and his like passion for robots was really awesome, and like he really cared about this program. So I'm really glad that I got to experience some memories with him. Manny, you want to talk about some of your memories?
Sure. His passion for robots was high, but it was exceeded by his passion for any first student, all the first kids in the program itself. We were lucky to collaborate with him a number of times on the game design committee, and used his influence for helping us design some of our games, specifically Get Over It, with the balance goal in between the two halves of the field. So that was something that Woody helped us be an inspiration for us.
Awesome. If you don't get to check it out, check out the hashtag Walk Like Woody. I think it's on pretty much every social media. There's a lot of really cool stories there, and I think the FTC Discord also has Woody Flowers Memoriam open right now in one of their channels. Last week on YouTube, we released our first ever FTC Top 10, where we covered the top 10 robot reveals of all time. We plan on continuing making these top 10s, and we would love to get your feedback on it. What FTC Top 10s do you guys think we should do next? And chat, let us know by tagging @FirstUpdatesNow.
Yeah, so these the top 10 reveals is certainly, I've seen a couple of reveals. I haven't been super involved in FTC for too long, but there are a couple of like classics that it's like when you get started on a team, the veteran shows the rookie this, and it's like, this is the robot we want. But in terms of like other top 10s, I know one that I suggested in the past was a top 10 FTC teams that retired. It's a little sad that we've got teams like Lambros, Gluten Free, and teams like really high caliber teams that just no longer compete anymore because of the people that have on them graduating or whatnot. But there's certainly there's a lot of things we can do top 10s about. I'd like to see some ideas.
Trishula from the chat would like to see a top 10 stream mutes. Tyler, I don't know if that's the thing that you want to do.
I'm more curious who has the most amount of stream mutes, and we can do a top 10 based on that.
That would be pretty funny. All right, want to talk about the new Go Build It wheels?
Yeah. So just recently, GoBuilda came out with a new set of Mecanum wheels. No Mecanum, whichever way. A new set of Mecanum wheels to replace the ones that were familiar with the Nexus Mecanum wheels of years past. So a couple notable changes about these new wheels. Instead of being 100 millimeters in diameter, they're now 96. Basically, most of the changes were to bring the wheels more into the catalog of GoBuilda, I guess. So they've got a GoBuilda pattern center. They use 96 millimeter diameter, like all of the other wheels that GoBuilda has. And they're also thinner, which is, I think, the most important difference. So the old wheels were 59 millimeters wide, and these ones are 38. So I know people in the design space of FTC have been pushing the limits of how thin you can get in between drivetrain plates. I know the record, I guess, the record that's been tied by quite a few people has been 64 millimeters. But to see a drop of 21 millimeters in the overall width of the wheel, maybe we'll be able to see some drivetrains on the scale of 6-wheel drive width, get more people interested in Mecanum, making it easier to use.
Yeah, also these have more rollers per wheel, which is going to give you a little bit of a smoother thing. A problem with a lot of Mecanums, you don't see this as much in FTC, but in FRC, is it bumps a lot, causing your robot to have vibrations and throwing off your sensors. So with more rollers, you're going to have a little bit more of a smoother ride. And the thinness, it's also going to be lighter, right? Because it's got less material. Definitely something to look out for. They're currently not in stock. So there is no GoBuilda wheel option for teams to buy right now, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it's definitely something to look out for.
One question I would have on this is not just maneuverability, but pushability. Will it, like Mecanum wheels, that's always an issue. You can easily push a robot around. Would more wheels or thinner wheels make it less likely to be pushed around on the field?
Yeah, it's going to be a drawback. It's all about checks and balances that you're going to have to take a look at for your robot.
Another one of the change. Sorry, if I jump
ahead.
in here real quick. Another one of the changes they made is the durometer, or the hardness of the wheels, the rollers, went from 90A, so that's harder, and dropped to 70A, so softer, like you might find with a compliant wheel or a squishy intake wheel. So on their website they say stickier, but we'll have to see how that plays out on the field tiles.
They could wear down a lot quicker because of that.
So I just want to ask it. So they announced this. Did they have any inventory and it sold out, or did they announce it prior to having any inventory?
So
I believe they had inventory.
Yeah,
I believe
sold
they
out.
had.
Sure.
They had a small inventory. They also had the GoBuilda grant, which I think gave teams drivetrain kits with the wheels in them. Which was pretty cool, but I don't think they've had. It looks like somebody in chat is saying they've been out of stock for the entire time, and so I found that kind of interesting that they decided to release these midway in season when everybody's trying to buy Mecanum wheels, and they discontinued their other ones. But yeah. All right, want to move on to our last topic of the day.
So when we were reviewing the game on kickoff day, about a month ago, there was a question about the ring starter stack being available for use as regular rings during autonomous. And in short, the answer is yes. For a traditional event, you do have to keep in mind that you have to leave the opposing alliance's starter stack area alone. So if they shove it off, I would assume that if they shove it off that starter stack area, it's likely fair game, just like it was with Skystones last year. But if you interfere with that area, it can lead to, I believe, it's protected by GS8. So I think that's a major penalty. So, but in remote events and traditional events, you are allowed to use that starter stack, your own starter stack, as regular rings to score with. So you can find this clarification in the remote version of the forum section. But this is a good, as autonomous question number 3, but this is a good example of why it would be a good idea to read both forums, regardless if you're going to compete in the traditional event or a remote event. Read both forums, because this is only in the remote forum. I did not find it in the traditional forum as of this morning. So it applies to both. So just take a look at both forums as you are trying to get rule verifications, because maybe you'll learn something that can be applied to your traditional event or your remote event. When it comes, really the only difference is with remote event, there is no defense. So any rules that apply to defense don't really apply to the remote events. So just keep an eye out for that, and that'll help you with your gameplay.
Yeah, interesting thing here, because I know there's been a lot of talk in the community, and Manny, if you want to speak to this, you can. If not, we're not putting any pressure on you. With the starter stack, randomly teams could be getting 4 rings in their starter stack, and that's 12 points per ring in the high goal. You could be scoring 48 more points in autonomous in one match versus another, just randomly, and that could heavily influence the ranking system, because the ranking system was very recently switched over to average score. We had a lot of questions about this coming into here. And so, Manny, if you want to say something about it, go for it.
Yeah, put me on the spot right away. No, it's like it is written. The teams have a random shot at what those starter stacks are going to be. It's going to be 0, 1, or 4, and that's if a team is fortunate enough to get at a meet, they get 6 4s in a row. Congratulations, but it is a random. I know that we have looked at the randomization in the scoring system, and it is pretty random when you run it a bunch of times. Sometimes it doesn't appear that way, but you got to we make sure that it is a true randomized number between 1 and 6, with 2 chances to get those 0, 1, or 4. So that's how it is.
Awesome. I guess it also does add a little bit of more randomness to virtual events, which you don't have the randomness of alliance partners and stuff like that, making it a little bit more like a normal event.
Hey fun fans, if you're into tabletop games, come check out our new partner channel, Boardlandia, on YouTube. New game unboxings, reviews, let's plays, and more. Plus, we're giving away free board games on their channel and special promo codes on some of the best prices you'll find anywhere. Click the link in the description or search for Boardlandia on YouTube.
That was our last headline for today. We're now going to switch into our section called Let's Discuss That. For those of you just joining, our guest is Manny Lowe, a member of the FTC Game Design Committee, and he has been running the FTC program in Mississippi since 2012. He won the Volunteer of the Year award at the World Championship in 2016. To start us off, could you tell us a little bit more about the Game Design Committee and what exactly it's responsible for?
Well, the Game Design Committee, each year, we are made up of 7 volunteers. I believe that's correct. And we have been purely volunteer based for since the beginning of game design, back in 2006 for hanging around. I joined I believe in the Quad Quandary year in 2007, and we've been designing the game every year, coming up with the rules, coming up with originally we came up with a lot of the game manuals, and working with First on helping get those crafted and refined over the years. But it's I gotta hand it to all my fellow Game Design Committee members. We come together each week because it's a year-round process, and we our our strengths and weaknesses meld so well together that we have a wonderful cohesive committee in putting these things together.
That's awesome. I mean, the game design committee has been some of the top volunteers in the past. I've met, I think, all 7 of them at the World Championship at one point or another, and they're all really awesome people. So if any of them show up to any events that you go to, definitely reach out and try to talk to them. They have some of the craziest stories, and they're just generally awesome people, like Manny here. Egan, you want to move us on to the next part of this?
Sure. So I know some of the things that my team has speculated about in the past, in passing, is how long it takes to make a game, and how much, how far in advance are they done. I've heard someone float around 3 years. Now I don't know. I don't know that that's, certainly however far back you plan it. But could you give us like the general timeline of how long it takes and making a FTC game?
Generally, it takes a little over a year. For example, we started next year's game about 2-3 weeks ago, even though we actually had ideas for next year's game before the pandemic hit. So we've been making sure that we take all of our ideas, we save everything that we come up with at during when we all get together and have brainstorming sessions. So it's a year-round process, like I said earlier, and we don't really start focusing on the game for an upcoming season until after we're pretty much sure that the game that we have about to play is pretty much taken care of.
Yeah. So what do you come up with, like, the field first and then the scoring? Or like is it like we want to shoot and then you figure out what you're shooting into, or it's like this is what it's going to look like, and then yeah.
It goes either way. We've lately been themed based, but usually we sometimes come up with a game before we try to fit a theme around it. Sometimes we have a theme and then we try to fit a game into it. So it's definitely can go all different kinds of ways for dealing with the game. But sometimes, and then it's also a two-way street. We'll come up with a game, show how it would feel, and then we'll find out what the potential theme is for the coming year. And we say, okay, how can we tweak the game in order to fit the theme, or other aspects like that. The best themed game I thought that we came up to was Rover Ruckus. I mean, we knew that year we were going to be doing a space theme, and because of the 50th anniversary of the lunar landing, so we were all set for that, and then and the design of the game elements were just second to none, and that was mostly done by our friends at Andy Mark that help us design, sit on with us in game design and come up with certain ideas. But I see that the game animation is being played right now, and that's also a wonderful talent that we have access to. Kevin Thorpe, who has been doing our game animation, I think forever.
He has.
He's a former FRC team member, and helped us design the game elements, and so it's get the look of the games after we come up with how the game is going to be played.
Manny, since you brought up the game animation, I do have to ask, what about in the beginning of this with this acting that happened? So can you get a little more into that as well?
That is purely first with the Dean's List winners. In this episode, actually, a friend of mine from Georgia who won the Dean's List that year. She's the captain, sitting in the center chair, and so it's a
So you didn't write
shout
the
out to
script
the
or anything
Garbers.
like that, right?
I'm sorry.
You didn't help write the script?
No, we may influence sometimes, but no, that's purely first.
Awesome. So I'm a little curious about like where like the GDC falls, what first does and what Andy Mark does, since those seem to be like the three major components in designing and putting out a game for a team. And so for the GDC, I'm assuming that it's mainly like the sketches of the game, and then you bring that to Andy Mark, and they start fabricating it and figuring out how to fabricate it, and you work with that process. Where does first fall in? Like, are there certain things that they tell you it's going to be the same every year, or do you have flexibility with that?
We generally have some flexibility. We work with first all the time. A member of the first Tech Challenge staff is actually our leader on game design, and that's Erin Vad, and she is the she guides us along the ways and gives us updates on things that first wants to focus on sometimes, and we take those guidance and craft it into the game. We also use Andy Mark as just as a resource for us. We generally try to come up with game ideas like in the early years before Andy Mark got involved. We wanted one of the aspects of the game was we wanted to make sure that parts to build the field were readily accessible and could be easily done by someone that wasn't very mechanically oriented. So, for example, Hot Shot was not Hot Shot.
Ring It Up.
Ring It Up was purely PVC, and getting all that put together was relatively easy. The fun part about Ring It Up was the mechanism we used for raising those flags, and that was a fun aspect to the game.
Really cool, cool stuff. I know in the past, like with all the custom fabrication, the one thing that stayed with custom fabrication is the custom walls that a lot of teams use due to the expensive nature of buying a perimeter. And I know a lot of teams are going to plan on using those walls during the virtual events this year. Ingrid, do you want to move on to the next question?
Well, I think we covered how you guys get your inspiration to create a game. You talk about how you have created it either based off of the way you want a game to play out or based off of a theme. So do you guys have any long-term goals with the GDC, and what direction does the GDC want to steer FTC forward?
Well, our long-term goals are basically the long-term goals of first is to try to make it as accessible and to as many students and people that we can. So we want to keep the games simple yet not boring for veteran teams. We want to make sure that everybody has an aspect of the game that they can potentially deal with and move ahead along those lines. We do have a set of requirements that we try to meet this year. I know that was one year that we failed on one of our main requirements, and that is it's got to fit in a minivan in order to transport. One field has to fit in a minivan.
Thank you! Oh my gosh!
That was one of my favorite games, though.
We failed that. We failed for rescue because of that mountain, but it's still, yes, it was a fun game to play, and we saw some interesting robots compete that season. But other games is, one aspect is looks hard but is easy to do, is another aspect. And try to get the audience to understand what the game is like without having a 12-page manual in front of it saying, okay, what does this mean and what does that mean? I know we've been more successful at doing that lately.
Yeah, I know we had a question from Ocean in the chat about this, or from Discord, and she was talking about how Skystone and Ultimate Goals seem a lot more audience friendly, and I know that's something that I've loved. I would watch the FRC games, and especially in I think it was Steamworks, when we were playing Relic Recovery and we were stacking blocks and they were shooting balls at insanely fast rates. It could have been a little bit sad being an FTC person, but I know that Ultimate Goal is so much fun to watch, and so is Skystone. So GDC, thank you for doing that.
Sean, you just need to go back a few years. You'll find some FRC events that will put you to sleep too. So
I mean, you can go look at Recycle Rush, but
bingo.
But I'll take whatever I can get.
I think something that's also helped out with audience engagement is we now have live scoring that came up a couple of years ago, and there's little animations at the bottom of the screen that not only show how the score going up or down or whatever, but also just like icons that are very similar to what is on the field and stacking them up and stuff. And I think that's really helpful for the audience. I've heard great feedback from audience members that are cheering on their grandkids or their sons and daughters and going, oh my gosh, I now actually understand what's going on in this game, instead of seeing this thing move around and pick this up and place it over there and I have no clue what that means. Right. So I think that interaction has been incredibly helpful.
That's also thanks, as far as the scoring system goes, to some more volunteers that stepped up and said, let's take advantage of what the technology has to offer us. One of the interesting things about the contrast between First Tech Challenge and First Robotics competition games is that the First Tech Challenge, the way it has grown, the number of people that actually have full fields and that can host events is like 100 times the number of FRC fields that are out there, just because of the cost of building a First Robotics competition field. So the aspects of getting the low cost of the live scoring together was important. So it's all you need is a tablet and a laptop in order to score the game this year.
Awesome. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I talked to Joe Perotto, another game design committee member from Delaware. He and I have known each other since my first year in FTC. But I talked a little bit about the balance of a game. How do you try to balance the game between auto, teleop, and endgame? Do you try to make them equal? Do you try to what's the process for that?
It's we go through the games. Basically, we try to identify all of the scoring parts of the game before we actually put points to those scoring elements, and then as far as whether we balance autonomous versus the end game or autonomous versus teleop, we want to make sure that there is aspects of different kinds of robots that can perform the game. We like to say, okay, what would a rookie team robot do in order to get the game versus a gluten-free robot being able to do the game, and so we want to make it as like the game points and the balancing as fair for everybody to get involved. You don't want to turn things into just the team that has the most capable robot to win. We like sometimes throwing in a spoiler in there, or like we had for Ring It Up, you had the black ring coming in there and saying, okay, this now reverses the post on for the score. So we like seeing that type of thing. We also like to sprinkle strategy involved. So the strategy for dealing with when's it the most opportune time to score something? If I've got a choice of how to score things, when should I go for it? Or do I wait until the end? And if I wait too long to the end, will I get shut out from doing it?
Really cool. So I know a lot of people were super surprised with rings this year. I think most people were expecting wiffle balls or even discs.
Yep.
What went into rings? Why were rings chosen instead of like wiffle balls or discs, which are like more common elements?
So rings. Well, we originally going back to Ultimate Ascent, the FRC game. The FTC Game Design Committee actually developed a game that was based on using mini frisbees to score into goals. So we pitched that game, and a couple of members of the first robotics competition team came in to share ideas and view. We had first Lego League and first robotics and our committee meeting together when we all pitched ideas and shared ideas with each other. And when we pitched our ring game to them, they basically said, "Guys, you can't do that. We're doing that next year." So we wanted to, in essence, try to use those mini frisbees for this year's game. But what we found was if you take one of those, let's say you are given the little mini frisbee like at a bank or something like that that's got the logos and things like that. That's what we were basing it off of, a 4 or 5 inch ring or disc. And you start throwing those things at the speeds that some of our robots can actually launch these things at, and you can get people hurt. And so we would have to put netting up all around the field and make sure that, just like they had to do for Ultimate Ascent, we had to make sure that we weren't going to hurt anybody. So we said, okay, let's see if we hollow out the disc, will that have any kind of effect? And then we came up with the squishiness part of it, and this was the how this was born.
So was it born out of? It was born out of safety, but was it also kind of a dual thing of, since it's squishier, it's going to possibly be a little bit harder to put some pressure behind and fling, because it can sort of morph into things a little bit. So is that part of the difficulty that you put in there?
No, that's just that's a nice
safety
side effect.
Okay.
Really cool. I learned a lot from that. I think a lot of teams were like, "What?" But I really enjoyed that answer.
We knew. Every time we release a game, we basically, some people will say, "Okay, here come the blocks back. Here come the the wiffle balls
Right.
back."
Yeah.
And we knew we wanted to get away from that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've got a question about the expectations of the game design committee. So, each year, later into the season, we get some sort of meta, or like the robot that everyone wants to build, and it's like the most common way of doing something. Does the GDC, or maybe you specifically, do y'all ever predict what you think the meta will be? And if you do, is it ever spot on, or are you like way off?
The answer is yes. So I'll take you back to not Ring It Up.
Fold over.
Bowled Over.
with the 30 feet tall robots?
Yeah. The initial goal, the initial thoughts for Boldover was that we thought teams were just going to stack crates, and if they get 4 crates high, 5 crates high, and maybe they might lift it 12 to 18 inches above. We had no thought, no idea that people are going to develop 12-stage lifts, elevator lifts to have those things 30 feet in the air. And so seeing those was truly amazing. So we were completely taken back by that one. But generally, and so one of our things that we have going into designing a game is, regardless of what we see taking place, we know that the kids on these teams are so much smarter than we are. They will design something that will that we would have no idea that they would do. So so coming up with certain aspects of the game is sometimes useful, but we know that we're going to get topped.
Ingrid, want to ask another question from the chat?
So what is the favorite game that you have helped design, and why?
Well, until this year, I really, really like Ultimate Goal, and I hope, beyond hope, that we'll be able to see the traditional game played with the cross goals and things like that for this season. But my favorite game has been Hot Shot.
Hot Shot was awesome.
Hot Shot was, that was the first time we ever shot things. It wasn't a pick and place kind of game. The mechanisms for releasing the balls onto the field. Thank you for showing the animation on this.
It's so old. It's in 4x3.
Yeah, it's and building that center goal was truly amazing, and that it was spinning. You can spin it, and we had all kinds of fun with doing that kind of game, and having letting the teams at the end, right before the end game, line up at the edge of the field and just wait until that end game whistle, and then all of a sudden, and the audience is, who hadn't seen the game before, is wondering, saying, "What are these robots about to do?" And then this plethora of balls come shooting out at them. At the audience has been really awesome as far as dealing with that. So that's my all-time favorite game.
Really cool. So we did have a question from the chat about the Q&A forum. What are your thoughts about how it's organized? I know a lot of people are having a little bit of trouble finding answers because they're super subbed in. Do you have anything to share? Or if you don't, if you could tell first that some people are definitely having trouble.
We know that there are situations with the game forum. We are investigating all the other forums, other ways of doing with that. We haven't been able to do that for this season, but that's all I can share on the moment for that.
Awesome. I think that definitely answers the question. And then one last thing was, does the GDC test robots? Do you guys make prototype robots, or are you guys just making a vision of what you think a robot might look like?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Awesome.
Either or.
Either or. Okay. So you do. Okay.
We wanna shoot. It might not be a fully functional robot. It may just be one aspect of the game. For example, this year we said, okay, how are the rings going to behave when we shoot them? So we had to set up a shooter in order to do that. But that shooter wasn't going around and collecting rings and then shooting them and things like that.
Okay.
Awesome. That's going to wrap up our questions. If you want to contact Manny, I think the GDC forum is probably the best way to get any game questions answered. And
it is the only way to get game questions.
It is the only way to get game questions answered. So please ask there. And we're going to switch into trivia. But before we do that, Tyler, I think you had something that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard of Fun kind of indirectly, but the LLC that runs Fun that I own, we are actually starting to create some board game videos as well too, and getting into a new market with our friends at awesome retailer called Boardlandia, which I have been a fan of for years. They literally have better prices than Amazon on pretty much everything. But we're starting to do some cool unboxing videos. We'll have some other videos coming out soon, so just wanted to point that out. If you search for Boardlandia on YouTube, there's only one video, but there will be another one coming out tomorrow. So check it out. So if you're in the tabletop games, you just get some cool things on what's coming out next. And then, of course, there are some special promo codes and some giveaways. We are releasing Marble Splendor tomorrow, which will also be having a free giveaway for if you, I think, type in your favorite Marble character into the comments when that comes out. So go check it out. Search for Boardlandia on YouTube or check them out at boardlandia.com. But more videos coming from that. We're very excited to partner with Boardlandia and start making some really cool content with them over on their channel.
Awesome. Now we're going to switch over to some fun trivia. We've already selected somebody from the audience that will be playing against Miss Ingrid for a chance to win $40. We have 5 trivia questions. Whoever gets the most right wins. If there's a tie, we'll use time as the tiebreaker. So don't look up the questions and try to figure out the answers because you'll just lose based on time. With that being said, Tyler, do we have our guest?
Here, can you hear me? Typically it's pronounced Oshin. You want to read them again? I muted the stream so that I'm not hearing myself twice. I'm ready. $168. Oka. Beacon.
Tyler, you're muted.
It was Relic Recovery.
Sorry, Chad. I just realized I'm muted to you as well, but we'll ask the questions once again once Ingrid comes through. How many Dean's List winners are there every year for FTC?
15.
And time. All right, we'll give Ingrid a big wave here so she knows to come back. And chat, sorry about that. We'll make sure you hear the questions this time as it goes through. Too many microphones.
Add that to the top 10.
Yeah, that is a muted. Why there's nobody mute? You could easily put in the exclamation muted. But with that said, we'll go through the questions once again. So Ingrid, it was pretty well answered there. We'll see how you do through this one as well. So we're going to mute our guest here for just a second.
Okay.
And your time begins in 3, 2, 1. How many teams compete at each World Championship?
Let's see. How many teams compete at each World Championship? I think that is 140.
What was one of the original division names used at the World Championship held in St. Louis?
Oh gosh. Jefferson.
What light-up game element was used in the Rescue and Velocity Vortex season?
The Beacon.
What game was played at the Festival of Champions for FTC?
Festival of Champions for FTC. That would be Relic Recovery. Yeah.
How many Dean's List winners are there every year for FTC?
10.
and time. All right, let's bring everybody back in here. We'll go through these questions one at a time. Manny, how do you think you would have done on this, by the way?
I think I would have gotten 4 out of 5.
Wow. All right. So with that said, let's go through these. You'll hear, once again, for our audience, they'll be able to hear a bell or a buzzer if they're right or wrong. We'll go through these one at a time. How many teams compete at the World Championship each year? We had Ingrid, 140, and then, I'm sorry, Ocean, how do you pronounce your name again? I'm really sorry.
You were right, Oshin.
Oh, perfect. Ocean said 168. It's actually 160. So 0-0.
Oh.
Name one of the original division names used at the World Championship held in St. Louis. Ocean said Oka, and Ingrid said Jefferson. It's 0-0 because it's either Franklin or Edison going on here. What light-up game element was used in Rescue in Velocity Vortex season? Both of you said beacons. Both of you are correct. That is beacon or beacons. Either one's fine. What game was a 1-1? What game was played at the Festival Champions for FTC? Ingrid, you said Relic Recovery, right?
Yes.
Ocean also said Relic Recovery. It's actually Velocity Vortex 1-1. So I'm going to tell you here, the last question, one of you did get it right. Because the tiebreaker, you had the same amount of time. So I'm glad that we have one of you correct on this. So with that said, the last question here, how many Dean's List winners are there every year for FTC? Ingrid said 10. Ocean said 15. This is for $40, or we move on to $50 next time we play. It is 10. Ingrid, correct. Takes it with it. Ocean, thanks for
Sorry,
playing.
man.
Appreciate it,
playing.
man. Take care.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Good
buddy.
game.
So GG's all the way around. So we're just going to move on to $50 for our next jackpot. Ingrid, you barely squeaked through, but you push it on for another day.
Really?
Yeah, Jefferson, I'm very worried for you, Ingrid.
I was thinking about, okay, Barry Bonsack, what did he dress up as? And I thought, old man, bald, with white hair. And I was like, Jefferson, but it's Franklin. And I knew that. I'm so sorry. I know.
Which one did you think you were going to miss, Manny?
Velocity Vortex.
Velocity Vortex, okay. Yeah, that one was my second year. I remember watching that from my house. That was a pretty fun time. Well, thank you, Manny, for coming on the show. We really appreciate having you on, and it's been awesome to have a GDC member answer and give us a little peek behind the curtains, but not too big of a peek.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the follows and subscriptions we've received today. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free if you or your parents have Amazon Prime. We hope you enjoyed this episode of FTC Recap. If you want to stay connected with what Fun FTC is doing, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @FunFTC, and join our Discord through the link in the chat.
We're always looking for feedback, so reach out to us on the Fun Discord to let us know what ideas you have for future shows. We want to bring you the content you want, and it really helps when you have more people to contribute to that pool.
So on behalf of myself, Deshaun, Egan, and our producer, Tyler, who's working behind the scenes, I would like to thank you for tuning in. See you around.